Welcome to the Fit Girl Magic podcast. If you are ready to find your inner magic, develop great habits, and a rock steady mindset to feel confident, comfortable, and fit in your body, you are in the right place. I am Kim Barnes Jefferson, and I'll be giving you weekly doses of health, fitness, and life tips sprinkled with humor and real talk. If you're ready to be consistent without the stress of perfection, magic makers, it's time to slip into your favorite pair of PJs, grab some coffee, kick back, and listen to today's show. And here is this week's iTunes review. It comes to you from Dub by V. She writes, I love the podcast. You speak your mind and you don't sugarcoat anything. I love your energy and your good spirit. Oh, that just fills my heart. You don't even understand how much I enjoy these reviews. So please, if you feel the need, please go to iTunes or wherever you listen to this podcast. Do me a favor and hit me up with a 5-star review. I absolutely love them. They mean the world to me, and I will read it on my podcast. So thank you so much, Dub by V. It does mean the world to me. All right. Today, welcome to another episode of the Fit Girl Magic podcast. And so what I wanted to talk about today was stages of change. Yesterday I have a membership group and we were talking about weight loss. And, I have a couple of ladies in the group who have a long way to go. And, with anything, we want things to be immediate. We want to be able to say, I started this on Monday and by the end of the month, I've hit my goal, right? It's just who we are as individuals, right? We want what we want. We want it right flipping now. So I wanted to say, let's talk about what it actually takes to change, so that there is, although it's not linear, right? As I describe this, I'm going to talk about, we're going to go from A, B, C, and D, and I'm going to describe it as linear, but that's not the way it goes. We've all seen those images on the socials where it is like a graph and it says, we think change and it starts low and works its way to high. That's how we think change is. And then you see how change really is. And it's like this big scribble scrabble of, highs and lows and round as we go. That is how change happens. And what I wanted to do is, I remember when I was going through my wellness coach certification, and I just recently did a mindset certification. We talked extensively about the trends in, oh my gosh, I can never pronounce this, are the 5 stages of change. And it was developed by a doctor by the name of James Prochaska, and I could have butchered that last name as well. But he basically said, all humans, regardless of what change we want to make, there are 5 steps that we go through. And maybe some of you, if you studied psychology, in college, or you're just a psych nerd, you might have heard of these. And so, I don't care what you're trying to change. There are 5 steps. And if you listen to this, you might identify, you might be what stage you might be in. And, some of them you might bounce back and forth, right? That's the beauty, the blessing and the curse about human nature, right? We're not linear. We're all individuals. And what Sally might go through is very different than what Cindy might go through. And it's so tough, especially when Sally and Cindy are besties and Sally can just slide through and just get stuff done. And Cindy's like, oh, I struggle just to find my butt with both hands. So let's just walk through the stages and think about, as we go through the stages, as we start to recognize the behaviors that we want to change, we get stronger. We get more confident. We get more confident that, I can make a change, that I can start to do things. And that's what I think really keeps many of us back is confidence, right? The confidence that I'm not going to look like a loser, the confidence that I'm not going to be a failure, the confidence that I'm not going to fall on my face, because, that's what most of us fear. One, is this change going to be hard? Break me out of my comfort zone? And am I going to fail? Right? We want to get that guaranteed gold star, right? Guaranteed gold star, guarantee that this is going to work. And their only guarantee I know is that if you do the work, you take the action, you are going to get a result. And that result will give you either a lesson or a result. Either way, you win. All right. So let's just go. So the first step is called pre-contemplation. And, it makes me think about the song by Shaggy, "It Wasn't Me," right? And if you've seen right now, I know I'm dating this podcast, but if you listen to there's a Cheetos commercial right now, and the person's like, "Did you eat the last of the Cheetos?" And they're asking all the people in the house, and they're all like, "Wasn't me?" And then meanwhile, there's like orange all over the face. And so this is where pre-contemplation comes. Like you may not even think that there's a problem to be solved. You might be living in denial, or maybe you tried to change this in the past and it was just so hard that you just clearly I don't have a problem. And so this is like what I say to people is that this is when you go to your doctor and your doctor's like, "Hey girl," well, your doctor's never going to call you "Hey girl," but if your doctor does call you "Hey girl," that's awesome. If your doctor says, "Cindy, if you don't lose 5 pounds, I'm going to put you on, you're pre-diabetic. And if you don't lose, 50 pounds, I'm going to be forced to put you on some medication to control your blood sugar." Or maybe it's something more serious that, if you don't stop smoking or you don't stop drinking, your liver and your heart can't handle it. Right. So that's kind of something that like might shock you into awareness where you're like, "Well, I don't really drink that much. I don't really smoke that much. I don't really eat that much." Right. And then, this kind of outside force tells you that there's a problem. And, and depending on where you are, like some people are in that, like, you know what? I like to smoke. I like to drink. Right. And I'm not going to change. So they're going to stay here. There's some people who are like, "Okay, thank you for sharing the news." But you're like, you feel that I can't do it because I've tried in the past and it's too darn complicated. I get overwhelmed. And I hear that. And that's where, as a coach, for someone who's been given that news, and I've had several clients who's been given this news, I work with them to understand like what's possible, right? Where are the barriers? Where would they find the complications? Because I get it. In this health and fitness game, I think that the diet industry is like, if we make this really complicated, people will just keep buying and buying and buying and buying. And eventually what I want my clients to do, I want my clients to be so freaking in tune with their body. They don't need me. Right. They might need to come do a drive-by for like a tune-up, but it's like, if you think about cars these days, do you bring your car into the mechanic like every 5 minutes? Like most cars these days, like can go a good almost 10 years before things start to fall apart. That's what I want you to think about. Like when it comes to this health, it's like, we're going to start to figure this stuff out so that eventually I'm pretty much running on autopilot. And from time to time, I might need an oil change. Right. I might need some spark plugs. I don't know. Do cars still even use spark plugs? But go with me there. Right. So that's where we are in pre-contemplation. Then we move to the second stage, which is, it's called contemplation, but I'm going to call it, I'm thinking about it. Right. So, maybe you put on a pair of pants and they fit a little snugger than you want them to put on, or you saw a picture of yourself and you're like, "Oh, good God, is that me?" Right. This is where you're like, "Ooh, I might need to seriously think about losing some weight." Right. I might seriously think about, stopping smoking or whatever the conversation that may have happened to you prior. And so here's where like you make some vague plans to change. You're like, yeah, I think I'm going to start that keto. I heard that, Keith had some really good results with that. Or, and here's where you might remain for a few years, right? You might be just like going back and forth, trying to like, this is where like, you're gathering information, trying to figure out where is the best place for you to go when it comes to making this change. But again, here's where the uncertainty and the overwhelm happen, right? We want to guarantee, one of the girls in my Fit Girl Magic Society, she's like, I know I have a lot of weight to lose. So am I going to lose a half a pound a week, or should it be 2 pounds a week? And it's like, here's where, as a coach, like you want your clients to feel success, but you know that it's not a linear thing. You know that, on March 15th, she's not going to lose a half a pound, and then she's not going to lose another half pound the following week, and she's not going to lose a half pound the following week. It might happen, but as a coach, we try to start to say, you know what, if you don't lose a half a pound every week, it's okay. What are the behaviors that you're changing? Right. So focus on the process so that if there is no progress for that particular week, you're not like, see, this is destiny. It wasn't meant to happen. Right. So here in this pre-contemplation stage, here's where I work with my clients to view is that what are we going to gain versus what do we have to give up, right? Because most people, when we're in this stage, you're researching all the diets out there, hearing what all your friends have to say, and everyone's saying, get rid of sugar, wheat, soy, corn, dairy, fun, like make sure that you're doing this amount of cardio and this amount of strength training, and you're not doing this, and you're getting all these like, no, where you're like, oh crap, I got to give up a lot of stuff. I don't know if I'm ready for that. Right. So here's where a coach helps you to get excited about your change. Like, did you hear what I said? Your change, getting excited about what is the clear vision that you want for your life, right? Because when I can be clear about what it is that I'm trying to achieve, what success looks like for me versus what success looks like for Cindy, right? Cindy ain't you. Cindy don't live your life, right? Cindy doesn't know your day-to-day, what's going on with you. So here's where, as a coach, right, we're trying to decide what behaviors make the most sense for you, right? And I'm a gradual coach. When I say gradual, I want you to work towards things at a slow pace. I always talk about this. I'm addicted to like, I don't really see them as much anymore, but like those, how there was a series of back in like the late 90s, early 2000s, called True Life. And it would be like, True Life, I'm losing weight. And they would have a coach come in, and the coach would clean out all of the junk food in their house. And the whole family would just be like up in arms, like going nutso about, losing all the food. And I remember there was one episode where this little kid like packed his bags and was like at the end of the driveway, like, I can't, I'm leaving, I'm moving out until this is over. So I don't want you to be that little kid packing their bags and being like, you have to give up all of these things, right? As a coach in this stage, I want to find what's going to motivate you, right? What's going to be that strong motivation? What is your why, right? This is your why. Your why is what's going to get you up on a snowy morning. Your why is going to have you make smarter decisions when you go out to dinner. It's also here as a coach, I'm going to help you understand like what are some of your challenges, right? Some of the challenges that you've come up against previously, right? And so how do we navigate those? And then we're going to identify possible solutions for those challenges, right? Because maybe you just think it's a brick wall, it's not possible to climb it, and then we figure out a way to like dig underneath it together. Then the next stage comes preparation. I call this, what do we do now? And this is, like I said, I'm a gradual coach. So I work with you to create small steps, right? Knowing what the barriers are so that we can, and figuring out your why so that we can experiment with different solutions. And it's collecting the information, right? It's making the list so that we are starting to create like our own personal blueprint, right? I think where most people fail is that we try to mold ourselves into some other diets, rules, or regulations, and all of that. And I get it. Like everyone wants to be told what to do. But at some point, that rigidness isn't going to work for something that's going on in your life. Vacation, maybe they might have, maybe there's like a laundry list of foods, and you might go to the grocery store one day and they don't have whatever it is. And then you're like, gosh, crap, what do I do? What do I do? What do I do? And there's like this panic. Or you go out to dinner, or you go over to a friend's house for dinner, and they're serving something. You're like, oh, I don't know how to put this into my FitnessPal, right? This is where, in this stage, I've really worked with you to kind of talk through like, how do we put all of these things together? Also during the stage, you're making different food choices, right? So maybe we're not eating fast food as much. Maybe you're drinking more water. Maybe you're trying out new recipes. Maybe you're walking more, right? So we're going through different things that feel easy, feel doable for you versus I must do, there's a thing out there called the Hard 75, right? And so it tells you like, these are the 5 things you must do every single day. And if you don't do them every single day, you got to go back to the beginning. Well, that's not motivating. Like, at least that's not for me. Like that to me, like demotivates me, right? In this stage right here, I work with my clients to create a plan, and I call it your non-negotiables. And there's 2 sides to your non-negotiables. The non-negotiables are like really simple, healthy things that you can do day in and day out that make you feel healthy and not nutso, right? So for me, for a very long time, my 3 non-negotiables were getting 7 hours of sleep, having a big ass salad, and moving my body 30 minutes a day. Right. Those were my 3 non-negotiables. And even when I traveled, I was on vacation, I knew I could commit to those 3 things. Right. And so that's what I asked my clients to do. I'm like, come up with those 3 simple things that, like, at the end of the night, when I'm brushing my teeth, I'm like, I did it. I did it. I did it. And I'm like, I honored my health. I made my health a priority without making it this like, huge time suck, right? That I think many people, we go back to our old ways, and we're just like, oh, it must look like whatever we think it must look like. Where if I just boil it down to my 3 simple things. So, I want you to like press pause and just be like, what could my 3 simple things be? Right. But the same thing comes for, what are you not willing to give up? Okay. So let me take this. I have, or one of my former clients, she was a chocoholic, loved her chocolate. And so she had chocolate every single day. Now, I'm never going to tell someone no chocolate, right? That's just like setting up, like, think of it as a volcano, right? A volcano just like, simmers and simmers and simmers. And one day, poof, it erupts. That's how we are when we restrict, right? When we restrict, we just build up, and then bingo, right? So what I was like, okay, and so instead of having 6 pieces of chocolate a day, can we start by saying you'll start at 6, and then every other day, remove 1 piece, so that we can make it down to like what feels tolerable, right? I don't want it to be like, oh, I'm just going to have chocolate on the weekends, because the next thing you know, you're knocking off a candy store. Where if I say, like, let's just experiment. So she's like, okay, we experimented with how much chocolate she needed. And so we got down to 3 pieces of chocolate a day. Okay. Was it? I mean, that's what it was. And I wasn't going to knock that, right? I had a client who loved cookies, and she was having like a sleeve of cookies every single day. And I said, well, can we, again, scale back, and experiment with, well, how many cookies are going to make you feel satisfied versus always having to have the sleeve, right? So here's where we talk about what are your non-negotiables? So like, is it cookies? Is it is it chocolate? Is it, I have friends who are like addicted to Sour Patch Kids. For me, it's cream and sugar in my coffee, right? Tell me anything else but the cream and sugar in my coffee, that ain't going, right? So move on. Let's not even talk about it. It's not even going to be a subject to be spoken upon. Cream and sugar is going to stay in my coffee, and I'm having 2 cups. Bottom line, end of story. Do not pass go and collect $200. Okay. So that's where I want you to start thinking about, like, what are the things that you're like, this makes me feel happy. It could be that glass of wine on a Friday night. Awesome. Great. We'll talk about it. We'll see how we can blend that into your life, right? I always like to say it's Goldilocks, like not too much, not too little. All right. But here in this preparation stage, it's really important for us to create this plan, create this blueprint, create this outline, because here is where we start to get squirrely, right? We start to get nervous. We start to be like, we don't have the patience that, oh crap, is this leading me somewhere, right? Because we don't, in this stage right here, we're not seeing the changes, right? We want changes to come up super fast. It's like going on a road trip, and there's like pieces of the road trip where like the exit signs go back fast, so you feel like you're making so much progress. And then you hit a stretch of the highway where like it's, 50 miles between each exit, and you're just like, where are we now? Where are we now? That's sometimes how dieting can feel. And I totally get this, right? So a coach helps you to explore these things so that you can identify what's leading up to the obstacle and how do you get past that obstacle, right? We walk through your strengths. We remind you of what you are strong at versus, it's really easy for you when you're going through this by yourself to just point out the poop in the carpet and just be like, look at that poop in the carpet. It smells. It's this, it's that, it's this. Where coaches be like, okay, so how do we clean it up? Right? Because sometimes we as a person can't get out of our own way. But when you hire a coach, that coach is like, hey girl, it's possible for you to get out of your own way. I'm going to go get the paper towel and we're going to clean that up and we're going to move on. And we're going to learn, why is there poop on the carpet? Bottom line, doesn't make you horrible, doesn't make you a failure. It just makes you who you are. All right. So then, it also helps you like to break free of that, all or nothing, right? We start to think about where, everything can't be perfect, right? That's where the biggest thing is like we focus on everything can't be perfect. So then we move into stage 4, which is our action phase. I like to call it the I got this phase. And so here's where we're starting to really change our surroundings, so maybe we're being more mindful of, not always, so I had a client, every time she drove, she was a nurse, and she would drive home after the night shift. And so she would, while she was getting a cup of coffee, she would stop and get donuts for her kids. And that was her like little thing. Like when she worked the night shift, she would get her kids donuts. And so then she would find herself getting donuts. And so it just became a thing. So then one of the questions I asked for her is, I'm like, okay, so great. So do you have to get your kids donuts? And if she said, sure, okay, no problem. But do you have to get a donut? Could you get something else at Dunkin' Donuts? And she's like, well, I've been thinking about their egg and cheese sandwiches. I'm like, great, right? Egg and cheese, it's got protein in it and it's, less empty calories than a donut. So that's where we started to do. And then eventually she's like, what? I don't need to go to Dunkin' Donuts. And she started doing other things as her, for her kids to bring home on the night shift. Here's where like other people start noticing your true commitment, right? That, maybe you told your friends, hey, I'm starting to, clean up my nutrition. So I'm only going to have, one drink when we go out for happy hour. And they really see that you're actually sticking with it, where previously you might've said, I'm having one drink. And the next thing you know, you're the one ordering the next picture. Oh my God, why can't I say that word? Picture of margaritas. And then you're like, bring on the jalapeno peppers and screw it, I'll start again on Monday, right? So they see that you only ordered one margarita and a glass of water and you're like, that's it, uncle, we're not going any further. Right? So they're starting to see and you're now starting to like feel more confident practicing these new healthy behaviors because now they've become habits, right? And that habit is now starting to become a routine of this is just who I am now. And it doesn't feel awkward. I know when you first start these on, it's kind of like, trying on someone else's shoes or putting your shoes on the wrong feet. Like you're like, I know something is off here, but I don't know what it is. Right? Here's where we start to really focus in on making this effortless. Now, here's a high chance of relapse or lapse. Okay, so let's just define what they are. So a relapse is that we've just like abandoned everything, all the behaviors, all the habits we've focused on for the last few months, and we've just been like, screw it. A lapse is you might have, instead of saying, I'm just going to have one margarita, you might have two, might have three. And you're like, you know what? You drive home and you beat the tar out of yourself. But you're like, you know what? Tomorrow's a new day. I know what I did. And now I'm back on the horse, right? That is just like a blip in the radar, right? Versus the relapse is I had the pitcher of margaritas, then it turned into nachos. Oh, I suck. You know what? This is destiny. I'm not supposed to do this, right? So now we have to go back. We go back through this whole 5 stages again, right? So here's where, as a coach, I work with my clients to just clearly identify, like, what is your ideal outcome of all of the things, right? If we had a session and after you had this, this night out, I would be like, okay, so let's just talk about your ideal outcome. Like, what are you looking for in your health? And what are the obstacles? Like, let's talk through the margarita madness, right? Let's talk through that. And then what's the plan for what's next, right? So now what? We fell, we tripped, we might have a little blood on our knees. What's next, right? Are we band-aiding and we're gonna put some band-aids on it, or are we just gonna lay there on the floor and just look at our bloody knees, right? So here's where, as a coach, we help you explore those things so that you can identify like the pre and the post obstacle, right? Walk through your strengths, reframe that setback, because, on your own, you're just going to be like, oh, I stink. See, oh my gosh, yeah, this is exactly why I never try this stuff because it's how it's supposed to be. I am not wired this way, blah, 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 blah. And so it's kind of like, if you ever watch Grey's Anatomy, right? So a patient dies and they have this investigation. What happened, right? You put the mask on there for the anesthesia, and then what happened from that moment. And so that's what I want you to think about, right? We need to break down where were there a kink in the chain. And that's what I, work through my clients to be like, there's a process, right? I know so many of us think that diet and nutrition is outside of us, but there's a process. So it's like, how do we take that process and we say, okay, all right, I got it. All right, I figured it out. All right, this is how it's supposed to work, right? And so when that's what a coach helps you with, because like it's many of us, our poop don't stink and we can't see the trees for the forest, or we just are so quick to beat up ourselves for, one misstep. One misstep doesn't make, it all just like crumble, right? So here's where we start to just review the good, the bad, and the ugly. So we can kind of break that all or nothing cycle, because that all or nothing cycle is keeping you from actually taking it to the next step, which is maintenance, right? So here's where what I call, I'm still going, right? So here's where you become the Energizer Bunny, right? We're daily practicing these goals. We're daily practicing these habits. We know when things are starting to get a little wonky, right? We are paying active attention to the areas of our life that we want to make sure stay firing, right? A good friend of mine called these your 4 burners, right? We have 4 burners at any given time in our life. And some things are on high, some things are on medium, some things are on low, but we're always like paying attention to these 4 burners. And so for me, the 4 burners I refer to is like, we got our mindset, we got our nutrition, we got our exercise, and we have our habits, right? And at any given time, something's going to need a little bit more attention than the others. And I totally, and that's where we are in maintenance. It's like, we're, always just tweaking the heat on one of these 4 burners, right? So it's, you're going to stumble, you're going to fall, but it's not the end. There's going to be a subtle way that we can make a change, right? A subtle way for us to say, reconnect to, why are we doing this, right? Your why, I used to laugh, like your why should make you cry, right? Your why has to be so strong. Your why is your motivation. And so many of us think motivation is outside of us, and that motivation is going to ring our doorbell and be like, hey girl, I'm ready. I'm here to be your personal cheerleader. We have to be our personal cheerleader. And I'm going to be very honest with you. I work out in the morning. And so I live in Boston, and Boston is not exactly known for its like awesome weather in January and February. And there are some days that it's like going to be 5 degrees and I'm going to walk outside and it's going to be dark. It might even be snowing. And I lay in bed and that alarm goes off. And I'm going to tell you, I am not like, woohoo, let's do this, right? I'm not. But I know I ask myself the question when I lay in bed and I'm like, is this going to reduce is this going to get me to where I want to go? Is this going to help me get to my ideal physique that I want for myself? Is this going to help me look in the mirror later today and not beat the tar out of myself because I laid in bed, right? Those are the questions I ask myself. And then I'm like, okay, get your tush out of bed, Kim, let's go. All right. So it's like, I have to be sometimes my own cheerleader and reconnect to like why I want to do this. Then I think about like when I finish working out, I feel so accomplished. I feel like, as I told you, one of my non-negotiables is to move my body 30 minutes. I can check that box at the end of the night. Also as a coach, like I help you with resources. I give you alternatives so that you don't feel like you're spinning your wheels whenever you can't do all of the things, right? So it's like as a coach, I help you break free of that downward spiral. So I would love to hear how this has landed with you. Have you, made a decision as to where you think you are in this, on this change model? And, if you are someone who's in that, like, that contemplation stage of like, I don't know if it's for me, I've tried before and I've always seemed to fail. Like, let's have a conversation about that, because let's see how we can, brainstorm some ways to, actually move you into action, because it's the action that's going to start to prove to yourself that this can be different. And one of the biggest things I know I work with my clients on is challenging the status quo, right? Breaking free of what you've been told to do, the rules you've been following since you were God knows how old, and just get stuff done. So if that sounds like of interest to you, let's have a conversation. DM me, or you can shoot me an email. You can find me at hello@kimbarnesjefferson.com. All right, ladies, have a fabulous day, and I will talk to you next week.
Thank you for listening to the Fit Girl Magic podcast. If you've made it this far, yay. I'm thinking you enjoyed the show. Let's continue the conversation on Instagram. You can find me at Kim Jefferson Coach. In order for me to keep sharing this message, do me a favor and leave me a 5-star review on iTunes. While you're there, don't forget to subscribe so that you won't miss an episode. New episodes are available every Wednesday. The Fit Girl Magic podcast is intended to provide you with tips, tools, and strategies that will help you make better decisions about your health. I really appreciate your feedback and your support. Thank you so much.